the firing of Doug Peterson was not related to Carson Wentz. It went beyond that. They've hired Nick Sirianni to replace him. And Sirianni and his staff had a meeting this past week, and I had a source tell me that they actually expressed some hope that Wentz would remain there. But Wentz is ready to move on. The Eagles are willing to move on, even if it's reluctantly by some of them. They felt that Wentz's fundamentals broke down behind a decimated offensive line. They saw 2019 when he threw 27 touchdown passes and 7 interceptions. But he got hit in the helmet, you remember, in that playoff game against the Seahawks. That was by Jadeveon Clowney. And that's what really provoked the Eagles to take Jalen Hurts in the second round of the draft, which I think, because of lack of communication, created a mistrust between Wentz and others besides Doug Peterson in that organization. And Sam, I think that's why this is going down, we think, sometime in the next week or so.
Yeah, that's interesting stuff, Mort. You also have to wonder how much they were watching that Matthew Stafford thing, saw how much the Lions got, and thought maybe this might be another option. Look, this has been a roller coaster for Carson Wentz, not just this season. He's dealt with injury. We're talking about this guy's an MVP potentially a couple years ago. Rex, do you think this is the right decision for the Eagles?
No, I don't, Sam. I mean, you just talked about it there. 3 years ago, this guy would have won the MVP had he stayed healthy. And you bring in an offensive guru and a quarterback, guy that did a great job with Justin Herbert with the Chargers. So it's like, man, I was excited to see it. Mort talked about it. I thought his fundamentals were the thing that I was concerned with. Like, you can get that with coaching, you can get that fixed. This guy, a young franchise-type quarterback, you just don't find. I spent 30 years coaching. I never had a franchise-type quarterback, and you're just going to let him walk out the door? And I get it. Yes, he struggled mightily last year, but I thought it was more fundamentals and a poor offensive line, as Moore talked about, than it was anything else. And isn't
this coaching selection and Sirianni supposed to be for Carson Wentz?
That's the head scratcher about it.
Like, we're bringing it. Go ahead.
You go and hire Nick Sirianni. It's basically like you're hiring Frank Reich Jr. Right. Carson Wentz's favorite coach of all time is probably Frank Reich. So you go hire Sirianni. It's basically the closest thing you can get to what he wants. So you're thinking you're repairing the relationship. Otherwise, why wouldn't you keep your Super Bowl winning head coach in Doug Peterson? I get it. There's other issues. I think the only thing that really makes sense to me is what you just said, Sam, about, hey, wait a sec. Matthew Stafford, he went for what? Like, well, we have Jalen Hurts. We actually liked what we saw to him. And if we can get a king's ransom for this trade, listen, this whole offseason, I've said there's no way Carson Wentz is going anywhere. There's no way he's going anywhere. I would be shocked. But when Adam says it and Mort says it, you know it's going to happen. So I'm sitting over here like, this makes no sense. And now you're going to lose Wentz and you're going to lose Doug Peterson. I'll just say this. The pressure will be on Philly because of this. In my mind, this is a risky move, losing both of those guys.
Yeah, and last year, let's face it, because you mentioned Mort and Adam, last year I'm like, there's no way in heck Tom Brady's going anywhere. And he's gone. He's going to lead his team to a Super Bowl. I just thought it was going to be the Patriots, not the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But they were right, and we've seen some crazy things.
Can I say one thing about Carson Wentz, though, is that there are so many coaches around the league who really believe, like, I know Carson Wentz struggled last year, but they look at him, they've seen his previous tape, and they believe in themselves so much as a coach. You mentioned it, Rex. They believe, hey, you know what? With what I know, and with his talent and if he's coachable, I can get him back on track. And so, therefore, I could see a team giving up more than you might expect because and Frank Reich would be one of those guys. I bet Chicago might feel that way. Yeah. If Drew Brees retires, New Orleans might feel that way. There are teams out there that feel confident that they could get him back on track.
And who says, from what happened in Philadelphia, I thought it was a competition thing. There might be some things behind closed doors that we may not know. But who says that this young Carson Wentz can't go to another organization, maybe hobbled by an injury, that there's another a concern or another a competition question of another team? I think for me, looking at Carson Wentz and the Philadelphia Eagles, I thought that Coach Peterson was put in the bind because when you seen Jalen Hurts come in as quarterback, you seen the team uplifted to the next level. So when Carson Wentz started this, hey, I want out of town, me as a player looking from the outside looking in, I said, what, you don't want to compete for your job? And that's what I'm looking at. So if Carson Wentz is able to go to another team, hey, there's a backup quarterback and there's a third-string quarterback too.
Yeah.
Hey, he could be hobbled by an injury. The backup quarterback could come in. Now we're doing this back over. So I think from an emotional standpoint, whoever gets Carson Wentz needs to bring him back down and just let him know, hey, man, this is the National Football League. This is a business, and you're going to have to go out there and compete for your job sooner or later.
Sam, you started this discussion asking Rex if the Eagles are making the right decision. I don't think it's the Eagles' choice. I don't think it's the organizational choice anymore when it comes to the quarterbacks.
I kind of disagree.
I know, but if the quarterbacks want out, they can get out. It's being proved. All right, Stafford wants out. All right, Wentz got out, Deshaun, all of these guys, because that's the one place where you don't want discontent as an organization. Yeah. You don't want it at the quarterback position because you can play hardball. You can miss any future offseason thing if we have them, any OTAs, any mini camps. You can play hardball, and then you'll put pressure to where the players are like, what are we doing? He wants him out. Get him out of here. Can we move on? These are the positions. There have been players. Jalen Ramsey, a high-profile cornerback. They're starting to show players. There's more power. If you want out, you can do it if you do it right.
I think part of the reason that the players feel that they have more power is they're making more money than they've ever made. And so some of these guys, if they do have their bank accounts full, they're sitting in a place of more power, like more leverage, if you will. I agree. I think it is trending that way. It is very new, though. We haven't seen it at that position. We've seen it at other positions. We haven't yet. Maybe the tide is turning.
It is going to be wild to see. I know they mentioned Chicago. If he ends up reunited with Nick Foles in Chicago, maybe they're just trying to get Super Bowl vibes.
But would it make sense, like in that scenario, just hypothetically, if he got traded to Chicago, wouldn't Philly want Nick Foles back? I mean, the guy's got a statue there.
The statue's out there. Yeah.
Why would Foles go back? He wouldn't have a choice. I mean,
I think Nick Sirianni is a guy. Like we mentioned, Frank Reich Jr. He's kind of in that family. Like there are quality coaches out there. I mean, sometimes you just need a fresh start. I mean, I can even remember I had a good relationship with Mike Holmgren, but there were times where he was the play caller, I was on the quarterback, and we weren't necessarily on like speaking terms. And what was the result of that? Very bad quarterback play.
Quarterbacks,
so luckily, thanks to
quarterbacks so
Mrs.
sensitive.
Holmgren, like we pieced that
Why
together,
are you
and it
quarterbacks so
worked
sensitive?
out. I'm just saying.
Why are you so sensitive?
Listen.
They're just trying to win, Teddy. That's what it's about. They're trying to win. The crazy thing is if he is traded, that means from that 2016 draft class, the number 1 overall pick in Jared Goff and number 2 overall pick in Carson Wentz will both have been traded this offseason. Wild
Crazy.
times. We will
Great
see
picks.
what happens in the coming days. I don't know if you guys have heard the saying before, you have to see it to be it. And